Anime's popularity was growing rapidly in the United States in the late 1990s, and this increase in popularity also came with an increase in scrutiny. Columnists from various mainstream outlets were covering its rising popularity, and even if the articles themselves weren't explicitly negative, there seemed to be a common observation that these Japanese cartoons appeared to be a lot more violent and sexually suggestive than their Western counterparts, even after localization. However, at the time, it looks like most people either didn't know or didn't care. Even in the now infamous Wall Street Journal article, they note that Cartoon Network hadn't received any complaints from either parents or advertisers. But this wouldn't be the end of it. Just over a year later, the issue of adult content in anime would be brought back into the news cycle in a new way, one that was not only critical of the content itself, but the places where fans purchased it. On January 28, 2001, if you looked at the front page of the New York Times, you'd find what appears to have been the catalyst of what was to come. An article by Times columnist Jim Rutenberg entitled, "Violence Finds a Niche in Children's Cartoons." It starts with 3 descriptions of violent scenes from anime that aired on Warner Bros. Or WB, Cartoon Network, and Fox during children's programming blocks. After touching on anime's increasing popularity and a muted response from parents and media watchdogs, he compares it to classics like Roadrunner and Tom and Jerry, noting an increase in the level of violence. After turning to page 19, you'll find descriptions of 2 more violent scenes, one from both Dragon Ball Z and Digimon. The next section focuses on how anime is influencing a new, more violent wave of Western animation, citing WB's Batman Beyond. An interesting note is that the article also has comments from executives at 3 large networks. The executives at Fox and WB both said that anime was more than just senseless violence. However, Nickelodeon didn't want anything to do with it, with the network's executive vice president and general manager saying, "It's more violence for violence sake than I've ever seen." The article closes with a section on how views about violence in television are changing, and another wondering whether anime would be able to sustain this level of popularity. But the thing that seemed to stick in people's minds was the notion that children were viewing things that they really shouldn't be. In the response to the article, ICV2's final statement would turn out to be prescient. With a grittier, harder-edged anime like Outlaw Star making a splash on the Cartoon Network, anime is going to get more visibility at a time when the entertainment industry is an easy target of bipartisan political opportunity. Evidently, there are otherwise rational people who want to problemize children's television. This front-page article in the New York Times may just be the overture in a symphony of bloviation to come. Stay tuned. Our saga begins in early February at the famous Golden Apple comic shop in Los Angeles, California. Reporters from the local television station KCOP TV sent 3 boys into the shop to buy adult comics. After wiring them up with cameras and microphones, the kids were able to walk out of the store with some adult books without much trouble. The report appears to have ended shortly after they tried to interview the store's owner, Bill Leibowitz, and were quickly shown the door. This incident only aired on local television, so most people, even within the state, probably had no idea that it happened. But a similar event would take place less than a week later. This time, it took place in Cleveland, Ohio, and the local news station was WEWS-TV. This story was inspired by one of the network's producers. She was surprised by the adult content in the cartoons that her 16-year-old son was watching. In order to show everyone just how easy it was to obtain, they wired him up with a camera and sent him into a couple of video store chains. And at least one location, he didn't have too much trouble. While the report didn't name the stores, ICV2 found out that one of them was Suncoast. In their recap, ICV2 notes the apparent difference in the objectives between the 2 hidden camera stories. Unlike the TV undercover operation in LA that targeted Golden Apple, the Channel 5 story appeared to be more about enlightening the general public that adult cartoons are out there, rather than about skewering any individual retailer. The key message of the Channel 5 report was that a lot of what's available in video stores is a long way from what you see on television. While the report did include comments from the Citizens for the Protection of Children in Medina, a county in the greater Cleveland area, it also spoke with the owner of an anime video store. Now, if one story is a coincidence and 2 make a pattern, then 3. Another report was released on February 13th by WTAE-TV out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Like the previous story, this one focused on how easy it was for children to obtain anime with adult content. The reporter sent in a 12-year-old with instructions to buy something explicit, and he returned with a tape that, quote, contains violence, strong language, and nudity, end quote. However, at the end of the report, she noted that the tape didn't contain hardcore pornography, and that it wasn't against the law for the store to rent or sell it to minors. There wasn't a whole lot more to the report other than quotes from the director of the Pittsburgh Coalition Against Pornography and an anime watcher. The last report takes us back to California. On March 1st in San Diego, KGTV released their investigation. The report begins by describing anime's increasing popularity using the Eastlake High School Anime Club as an example. They then speak to a concerned mother who's never heard of anime before. They show her clips that, according to the reporter, are, quote, so sexually explicit we can't even show you parts we showed her, end quote. She called the footage X-rated and didn't appear to leave with a good impression of anime as a whole. It has no benefit. There is no redeeming value to it whatsoever. I mean, it's just shocking to me. They then sent her 13-year-old son into 2 video stores, Suncoast and Tower Records. At Suncoast, he was able to purchase the hentai OVA Dragon Knight without any resistance, and this seems to be the anime that they showed to his mother. At Tower Records, they tried to purchase 2 tapes, one marked ages 13 and up, and the other marked ages 18 and up. After being asked to verify his age, he was only able to pick up the tape marked 13 and up, but an employee noted that things do slip past them when they're busy. However, even though he was old enough to buy it, they were still critical of the content, citing violence and nudity. They spoke to a police officer about laws that restrict the selling of harmful things to minors, but he said that there was no definitive legislation on the issue, and that they'd be looking into it. They also spoke with a representative from the Citizens for Community Values of San Diego, who called for retailers who sold these materials to kids to be prosecuted. As for the Eastlake High School Anime Club mentioned at the beginning, it ended up getting suspended. While the club didn't believe that they had shown any explicit content, they suspended the club pending investigation. ICV2 reached out to the school after the report and found out that the investigation didn't uncover anything. However, a policy required students to obtain written permission from their parents to view videos on school grounds, so at the time of their report, the club's future was still uncertain. This report seems to have received a lot more pushback from anime fans. In addition to discussion on news sites, fan groups, and blogs, there was a much more positive anime-focused article released by a parent in Cleveland, as well as a petition going around asking KGTV to release another report to clarify that not all anime is violent and pornographic. While the petition doesn't seem to have gone anywhere, the KGTV report would mark the end of this short trend. But was this really a coincidence? In their coverage of the Pittsburgh investigation, ICV2 gave 2 reasons why this trend could continue. The first was that a lot of local television stations are owned by the same company and can share stories with one another, but at the time, each station was owned by a different company. The second was that news directors will look at other stations in order to get ideas for new stories, which is definitely a possibility. Regardless of the reasons behind it, this episode gives us an interesting look into how anime was viewed in the early 2000s, and while fans may not have appreciated the way anime was portrayed in these stories, it doesn't look like they did anything to slow anime's growing popularity.